Well, the Black Business Council says that established businesses can probably stomach a day of no business, but it is concerned about the impact the national shutdown could have on small businesses. In fact, it's urging the organisers of the shutdown to be more mindful of small businesses as they can ill afford not to make a day's takings. Meanwhile, the Road Freight Association says that it's advised transporters not to move loads tomorrow if they don't have to. The RFA says that it's working closely with the police to provide assistance where necessary on the day of the national shutdown. For a little bit more on this, we're now joined by Khandani Msibi, who's the CEO at 360 Global Solutions Group, to talk to us a little bit on the knock-on effects of the shutdown on businesses nationally. Mr. Msibi, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for having me, and good evening to you and to the listeners.
All right. So you can see business from the various layers, big business, small to medium enterprises, and even, I guess, the very, very small one-man shops. What are your thoughts about business in general and this shutdown tomorrow?
Yeah, Peter, I think there's always been a need for businesses to become resilient against all sorts of shocks. I think the disappointment for me is that tomorrow's march and the national shutdown is made out to be much more than what the organizers have communicated it to be about. I think the idea that we could find ourselves with the army and the police readying themselves for a confrontation with the marchers could actually result in the day becoming worse or even becoming more than what it was meant out to be. I think the South African Constitution guarantees the right to protest, and I think we're putting far too much into it instead of embracing the right of organizers and their members to actually go out and protest. I mean, if you consider the fact that business had to endure 4 months of COVID lockdowns and have enjoyed last year alone over 11,700 hours of load shedding. A day's protest should not necessarily be resulting in the kind of reaction that we are seeing. I think just like COVID, we actually suffered more from our reaction to COVID than COVID itself, and I hope we don't repeat the same mistakes in that the reaction, our reaction to the national shutdown, become much more disturbing than the national shutdown itself. So there's a bit of disappointment on my part that we kind of overreacting, or the country is overreacting, or the state is overreacting to the rights of the EFF and other parties that are organizing the march to actually protest.
All right. I mean, the authorities might say, if we cast your mind back to July 2021, they were accused of not being prepared and not responding adequately, and we saw massive loss of life. So what do? Do they sit on their hands and do nothing and let people march? Or things could escalate and people could die?
There's a difference between what happened in those riots and what is planned for tomorrow. In a sense that we do know the organizers of tomorrow's activities. Nobody knew exactly who are the organizers of the activities that led to the incidents that you've just mentioned, right? And I think really drawing parallels where parallels don't exist, right, will actually lead us to actually trampling on the constitutional rights of people to protest. I mean, one of the opposition parties went to court and tried to make the protest unlawful, and the court stood with the protesters, or they planned a protest and said that it's a constitutional right, it is there. Right? I mean, are we now on the basis of what happened in the past when the riots got out of hand, going to remove from the Constitution, the right to protest and the right to freedom of speech. I don't think we want to do that. But the reality of the matter is, as far as the business is concerned, I don't think one of the things that was very interesting about this march is the date that was chosen. I'm not so sure if the organizers deliberately chose a day that is in the weekend that is almost a long weekend. I think, in all fairness, nobody can say South Africa's economy would have functioned on full steam on Monday when Tuesday is a public holiday. A lot of people have taken a long weekend. And a lot of people do take the day before the public holiday off as a day off, if it is placed either on the public holiday is on a Thursday or on a Tuesday. So it is really opportune, and I'm not so sure if, like I said, the organizers thought about that and they chose the least productive day in the economy for this march, which would mean that perhaps in their own calculation, they were also aiming for the least disruption to the economy.
On Friday, I spoke to Brian Paulo, who's the National General Secretary of the South African Informal Trading Forum, and they said that they can't afford a day off, and that actually on holidays like this, there's a lot of foot traffic that they rely on to sell their wares and their goods. So do you think that the very small trader, the one on the side of the road, on the side of the street, could be negatively affected? Because even one day is a lot of revenue lost.
It would be unfair to say nobody gets affected, right? But when the drafters of the Constitution wrote the Constitution, did they take into account that when you give the right to protest, right, you're going to disrupt other people? And I think that, in my view, would have been taken into account, right? That if you really are pushing for the kind of a vibrant constitution like ours, right, it's a give and take, right? But the very same traders, right, the point that I made earlier, that they were prevented from trading for 4 months and they're still here, right? And some of the people who run tuck shops have suffered a lot from load shedding, but some have survived. And if you're here, having gone through COVID and you've gone through load shedding, right, surely you should be able to survive one day of a protest or shutdown, right? Because of really overstating the impact as if it is only shock that businesses is suffering. It's misleading in a sense that it would actually mean that we should ban all sorts of protests, irrespective of what day they actually fall in, because of the impact that they're having on business. Right? I'm not saying that business does not get affected, that additional day of protest does not make much of a difference to a business. It does, right? But I'm saying that as a patriot and South African that believes in the Constitution that we've adopted, that even the right to protest, right, our businesses must be so robust and resilient that they can tolerate the right to protest. If they can't tolerate the right to protest, then we have a problem with the kind of democracy that we have chosen as a country.
All right, so we've run out of time, but perhaps a final question. I've been seeing on social media a number of businesses saying that they support the protest and they're actually going to let their workers stay away on full pay. Do you think that a number of businesses should be doing the same? Because we understand that those that stay away, it'll be on a no work, no pay basis. Should businesses be supporting this march, in your view, and helping their workers by paying them for the day?
It all depends on where the business stands, right? I think we've seen that in the past, that the businesses have actually paid workers to participate in specific protest that the business believed in, right? And I don't think every business participated in that. And in this case as well, There are some that would say that we're going to pay workers to participate, and there are some that are going to maintain the standard view, which is no work, no pay across all protests, irrespective of the beliefs of the leadership of the business. Right? So I just think that it's one of those things that people cannot apply a blanket approach. Each and every business knows where it is, and knows how it functions, and will make the rule dependent on the views that the business as a whole takes on these matters.
Mr. Msibi, thank you very much indeed for your insights and your thoughts on this national shutdown tomorrow. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. All right, that's businessman Khandani Msibi saying that our constitution gives us the right to march, and that people should be allowed to. And he says that perhaps it's an overreach by the authorities to be deploying the full might of the army to join the police in policing tomorrow.